Hi, Kriegsspielers. It's Umpire LaFondios. I wanted to talk about the three levels of command and how they came to be in the Saturday game that we had that was the Siege of Narva and the Swedish attack against the Russians. So, the levels of command, just as a review, is that there's always a situational task on how you win the game. So, both sides will have something that they're trying to achieve, and obviously, usually, it's at odds with each other. The CIC is the Kriegsspiel player who is in charge of everything on one side, and their level of command is really to position all of the corps such that as the corps move toward their objective, they achieve the outcome, with maybe one corps being triggered as a reserve to help achieve that outcome. But really, the CIC task is really about setup. The core goal, which is the middle layer of command, is how to position the brigades within that overall plan such that those brigades can be flexible and that corps be flexible given developments that occur during the game. And I'll show you an example of that in the Narva game that was quite interesting. Finally, the brigade goal is that Kriegsspiel player who doesn't have human beings beneath him or her, but they are moving regiments around and trying to win the local fight. So each of the layers of command is actually looking at a different problem to solve, but they're collaborating together to create an overall outcome. So in the situation, and this is a map we did not use in the game, it's something I pulled off the internet, but this is the siege of Narva, and the Russians had bottled up the Swedes in Narva, and they had put a 9-foot barrier on the outside, which is the red crescent. The Swedes were there to relieve the garrison, and they're the blue line. So that was the basic setup of the game itself. The Swedish CIC, and we know this because Wayne, who ran the game as a lead umpire, did an excellent job of getting the different CICs to talk about their plans and to do a great after action review. So that's how we know this with such clarity. The Swedish CIC knew that the Russians had strong forces on the west and strong forces on the east. One was grenadiers and one was guards. And then he needed to take his units and attack the middle where the weaker troops were and try to shatter the middle and then push outward and deal with the strong units on the Russian side once he had the positional advantage. He used cavalry to screen out to the west and to the east. So what was interesting about this is that the CIC analyzed the enemy, looked clearly at the situation, and positioned and aimed his corps to achieve the outcome. And once the game started, he basically just waded into the fight himself and kind of went forward to check it out. So there wasn't a lot of him sitting back thinking about changing the situation. He had a plan, he set it in motion, and that's a great example of what a CIC can do. As the game developed, the Swedish plan actually worked. They smashed the middle, they got in and broke the Russian line in two. The Russian CIC was in the east and couldn't communicate with the corps commander in the west, which is a classic circumstance in these battles. The CIC can't be in charge of everything. In fact, the CIC, both sides, the CICs had lost control of the overall situation. But that corps commander on the west side really looked at his goal, which was that brigade flexibility. And the way he decided to counter the Swedish success was to take one brigade, actually two brigades, and push them down the wall in north, and then take one and send it outside the wall in a flanking maneuver, breaking through the Swedish cavalry. And in fact, as the game turned out, that blunted the totality of the Swedish victory. So that was a good move by that corps commander. But what that corps commander did was used his brigades to think flexibly and change the situation in the absence of a CIC giving him instructions. Great corps command right there. Finally, an example of the brigade task on the in this game was on the Swedish front. There was a brigade of the commander's name was Horn in reality in history. This IKS player broke through in the middle and was given instructions by the his higher command to push west, which was part of the overall plan. So what he looked at was that there was an elite unit against the wall to the south and then militia to the north. And where that little gold star is, he gave the orders to continue to push on that side because if that militia broke, then that elite unit would have to fall back. So he thought very tactically. He was within the boundaries of his instructions from his higher command, and he used the tactical situation to achieve success. And in fact, he was able to break that militia there in the north, which gave a great advantage to the Swedes. So well fought at that level. So those were 3 examples of how each IKS player did a great job of looking at the problem set from their level of command, and they then worked their way through the problem set as the battle developed. The Swedish CIC was not down pointing the guns himself, and this brigade commander on the screen right now was not up advising the CNC on the larger situation. They were each fighting their level, which is why the great field general says, always focus and fight your level. It was a great game. Really enjoyed it. Hope everyone got a little bit from this analysis, and we'll see you out there on the board. Thanks so much.